Alright guys, welcome to this quick fire principles of animation. We're going to talk about the squash and stretch as the first principle. Now very simply, squash and stretch can be used for the bouncing ball, it can be used for the face, so many things. And the idea is to add a bit of weight and a bit of texture to the animation. So for example, we've got we're going to use a Lilo stitch for a majority of these principles, just to show you the principle. When it lands, you can see there's a bit of volume to the head, right? So that's what we use it for. It's more to do with adding a bit of weight. And when we do facial animation, when we're stretching the mouth, stretching the head, it's the same concept. So overall, the squash and stretch, it just adds that bit of volume. And you can do that in the body as well. When there's a bit of breathing, you get controls on rigs that help you breathe. So that's what this principle mainly is used for. And for the ball, typical, bouncing ball, squash, stretch. You squash down, then you stretch up, and then squash down, stretch up. So really, it's just for adding volume and a little bit of weight. As you can see, if we had, for example, if I go to the control here, so say if I go to get the rig up, so this top control controls the weight. So say if we go to the graph editor here, and we can go into just mute this, and now if we check now, you can see it's very solid, right? There's no volume, it's very rigid. So when we unmute, so if I go here and unmute, you can already feel that bit of organic weight scale. So that's what you're trying to do whenever you can add a bit of volume, and it's fleshing the animation out. Even in the body, when you have those muscle systems that some VFX companies have, it creates that kind of squash and stretch in the muscle when it's going forward and back, forward and back, forward and back, right? You're getting that kind of volume. So when you're extending and contracting, you're getting that volume. That's this kind of squash and stretch. You could see it in that way as well. Very similar thing. So it just adds that little bit more. Now you could block out the whole animation, and at the end you could start adding a little bit of squash and stretch just to polish it, bring it up a notch, add a little bit of that weight that wouldn't normally be there. And squash and stretch can also be, it doesn't necessarily have to be literally squash and stretch. It can also be like going down in a pose. So you could, for example, when you're going to jump, you could squash like this, where you're in that kind of circular pose going down. So everything is more or less squashed. And then the stretch could be the character starting to take off, right? So he's taking off. It's got 1 foot off the ground. That is a rectangle. So basically from a circle, you're getting into a rectangle. That can be a squash and stretch. So the principle can be thought about in many ways, not literally just a squash and stretch. It could be the actual shape, which is going down and then extending into a rectangle. And that's what animation is, a contrast, right? From small shapes to different shapes. So you get all these different contrasts: circle, rectangle, triangle. You get all these different variations, which shows the shapes of each poses, and you're getting that big contrast between each when you're changing from one pose to another. So all in all, simply, that's what squash and stretch is. So we'll move on to the next principle. So I'll see you in the next video.